Report on a journey to the western states of North America and a stay of several years along the Missouri during the years 1824 to 1827 by Gottfried Duden. 14th letter, Montgomery, September 1825, Part 3, Number 21. Land acquired from the government is not taxable during the first 5 years. To be sure, the taxes vary in accordance with the needs of the state. Please take note of the fact that this year 1/4 of 1% of the value of real estate, adult livestock, and luxury articles, including gold watches, must be paid as state tax, besides a small contribution toward the expenses of the county taxes. Capital is not taxable. The value of taxable objects is estimated so moderately that a tax of $6 is considered reasonable for a farm of considerable size. Whoever pays that much owns at least 4 to 6 adult horses, 40 to 50 head of cattle, 100 hogs, and a herd of sheep. There is rarely a direct federal tax, but individual states levy taxes every year. With the exception of the expenses mentioned, the farmer has no obligations at all. He can send his products to the Atlantic Ocean or to the Gulf of Mexico without the slightest tax or the least inspection. In Germany, it will cause surprise that here in the state of Missouri, not only the assessor but also the collector of taxes must come to every citizen. No one is obligated to take the taxes to him, although most people do so in response to his friendly request. Here, as in the entire West, it is quite customary to arrange for the payment of labor, for the common day laborer as well as the artisan, by barter, called trade. This is done less because of an absolute lack of cash than because of their effort to make trading easier through the establishment of equivalents. Articles to be traded have no fixed price, but their true value in cash is estimated in each case by the traders themselves, or by a third party who has been requested to do so. This procedure is based naturally on the conviction that these articles can actually be exchanged for silver without any special laws. Under Spanish rule, things were different. At that time, certain wares, especially skins and furs, had a fixed legal value. Formerly, it was not unusual here during a sale to judge by eye the number of small coins, piastres, and half piastres to be paid. In general, penny pinching is foreign to the American. From this outline, you may draw conclusions concerning the lot of the local farmer in general, and at the same time answer the question of what more can be desired for the welfare of the settler whose venture we have been following here. I would know of nothing except the comforts of a better dwelling house, and the expense connected with this is again in sharpest contrast with the usual European ideas. Just consider that this improved dwelling needs to be designed merely as an abode for the inhabitants, since other buildings, which cost almost nothing, provide for the rest. For $50 one could build more than a half dozen outbuildings, such as kitchens, smokehouses, sheds, barns, and stables, using hired day laborers, which is not a cheap way of building. A passable wooden dwelling costs about $200 to $300. For $500 to $600, however, a presentable brick house can be built, which would cost more than 4 times as much in the coastal cities. If the farmer owns 2 slaves, he may devote his time merely to supervision without doing any of the work himself, and in this case the housewife will have little reason to complain about keeping house. Food is abundant. Also, beer can easily be brewed since enough hops grow in the forests. The apple and peach orchards found on every farm furnish cider and brandies. Although a very good whiskey can be made from corn, the apple and the peach brandies are preferred. I have tasted old corn whiskey that cost 30 cents a gallon, about 2 Cologne quarts, and it was as good as the best French brandy. Even without slaves, the farmer lives in a manner that surpasses by far that of a European farmer of the same financial status. The soil is so fertile that the maize harvest requires nothing but a mere breaking of the soil, a single plowing. Then, with the same plow, furrows are driven from two sides of the square field to the opposite ones at intervals of 4 feet. The field is now, as one says, ready for planting. Children then drop 3 or 4 grains of corn on the intersection of the furrows, and an adult scrapes a little soil over them with a light hoe. This is done during the last half of the month of May. About 4 weeks later, as soon as the seedlings are from 1 to 1.5 feet high, the soil between the rows is plowed with a single horse several times and the weeds destroyed. This comprises the entire work until the harvest. The general attention given to fences cannot be called work. Wherever dead trees still exist, one usually has to remove 1 or more of the fallen trunks or branches before breaking the soil. Here, too, the American knows how to make the work easier. Instead of attacking big trunks with an axe, he places glowing coals, accompanied by single pieces of wood, on the surface at definite intervals. Stirring the fire and adding a little more wood, repeated from 4 to 6 times, is sufficient to disintegrate within 48 hours the greatest trunks into pieces that can be rolled without difficulty by 2 persons. These will later be consumed altogether by fire. Removal of corn stalks from a previous harvest is a part of the preparation for the next planting. They are either struck down, mostly by children, or rolled down, then raked together with a harrow and burned. If a farmer has no harrow, he simply makes use of a bundle of branches dragged by horses. Much less work is required here in sowing wheat, oats, and rye than in Europe. With this method, to be sure, the grain suffers much from weeds, but the abundance of space, which does not need to be utilized so carefully, makes up for it, and European perfectionism would be a waste of manpower here. For most of the harder work of housekeeping, there are ways of making the labor easier. If, for instance, laundry is to be done, a fire is lighted next to a nearby brook, and a kettle is hung over it. The bleaching ground cannot be far away either, and it is a matter of course that during the summer a shady place is chosen. If butchering is to be done, there are similar advantages. Usually animals to be slaughtered, oxen as well as hogs, are shot. The animals are lured to a suitable place with a little feed, and very rarely does a shot fail to serve its purpose. In this way, a single person can do the entire job, although it is the custom that neighbors help each other in this work. Finally, I must correct the erroneous opinion that the difficulty of social intercourse is the dark side of the vaunted lot of the American settler. One should dismiss from his mind the idea that the accomplishment of his purpose demands a great degree of isolation from neighbors, and consider at the same time that a distance of from 2 to 3 English miles here is negligible, even for the female sex. No family is so poor that it does not own at least 2 horses. Everyone strives to make these animals, which are kept at so little expense, his first purchase. Next in line are good saddles, and it is not unusual to spend $24 to $30 for a woman's saddle, which would suffice for 3 saddles on the Atlantic coast, for example, in Baltimore. Women and girls, old and young, ride, side saddle in the English manner, at a rapid or slow pace, without any difficulty, and they last in the saddle as long as the men. Not a week passes in which the housewife does not visit her neighbors on horseback, either alone or with a companion. On Sundays, only the weather can be a hindrance. Often the whole family leaves the house without the slightest worry about thieves. Some houses are not even provided with locks. although the kitchen utensils alone are worth more than $20. Horse racing, cockfights, and target shooting are here, as in North America in general, the most frequent occasions for the gathering of men. In some states, racing is forbidden, for example, in New York and Massachusetts. In Connecticut, cockfights are also forbidden. Unquestionably, they are to be counted among the cruel games. The natural spurs of cocks are cut off, and very pointed steel ones are attached, making the fight mortal in a few seconds.